Hello everyone, my name is Attila Kawauchi and today I'm going to paint this custom-made sculpture by Elias Lagares, a friend of mine, and one of the best Brazilian sculptors. This is the Overwatch version of Link, based on that fan-made artwork. This video was originally made in Portuguese, so I'm redubbing this in English so I can reach a bigger audience. If you like my content, you can become a member of the channel. Each tier will give you a different benefit. The materials and paints that I used will be listed in the description down below. First thing, I used black primer to prime this entire miniature, and next I'm using engine gray from Vallejo using an airbrush for the first layer. With this layer I'm trying to hit it from above like a pre-shading, more or less like a zenithal highlight, but with a darker color. I'm doing this for all parts that will be gray. I'm hitting with this paint only from above because I want the darker shadows to form below. Now with Khaki from Vallejo model color, I'm going to use the same technique coming from above, but now I'm reducing a bit the area. And this is another layer using the same color, which is Khaki. And now a third layer using the same color. Now using olive green from Vallejo Model Air, I'm going to paint green parts of his clothes. Now using white, I'm going to do like a pre-shading. I'm going to force a highlight and then in the next step I'll tone down this a bit. Now with Escorpena Green, I'll cover everything I did in the previous step. Now using blue from Vallejo Model Color, I'm going to apply some shades. I'm applying these layers very lightly with the airbrush. Now for the blue parts of the clothes, I'm going to use Necrotite Green from Peat Formula with a good old brush. Now using that flash from Vallejo Game Color, I'm going to create a central shine for the middle of the shield. The idea here is to create a sort of a glowing effect, so in the center will be lighter and the borders will be darker. The borders will be bluish and the center will be greenish, so I'm going to use now blue from Vallejo Game Air. Now I'm using a very light and saturated green from Vallejo, which is called Livery Green, and I'm focusing on the center of the shield. Now I'm using white. Now I'm back with Livery Green. You can see I scratched off the paint of the middle because I made a mistake there. I was using a lot of layers and I forgot to mask this part, so the paint kind of accumulated in the center, so I had to remove a bit, and later on I'm going to fix it and repaint this part. So to avoid this kind of thing in this case, I should have masked this. Now using a very light gray, I'm going to paint all non-metallic metal parts of the shield. To be honest, I'm kind of sketching the highlights of the non-metallic metal in this step. At this point I'm kind of advanced in the process because I lost some of the footage, but now I'm going to show here in this small part of the shield what I did in the rest of the metal parts. So I basically use white, gray and black to create these streaks of light in the reflecting the shield. The key here is to follow the same direction all across the shield. Here I'm using Titanite Green from P3 and mixing with a little bit of Livery Green from Vallejo. At this point I used more Livery Green mixed with Titanite Green. Back to his pants, I'm starting to draw some shadows using black. I'm using wet blend and a lighter gray to create some highlights. In the reference, this pocket is a bit darker, but I decided to keep it the same color as the pants and only the borders will be darker. Here again I'm with black drawing some shadows, especially in the bottom areas. Here using Scarlet Red I'm painting the base coat of the shoes. It's a sort of a metallic shoe, so I'm planning to do some extreme highlights here. Now I'm using Stonewall Grey from Vallejo to use as a base coat for the white parts. Here I'm using Sun Yellow from Vallejo. Now with white I'm going to highlight the gray areas. Now using a mix of white and a bit of red, I'll start to sketch the highlights of this shoe. I use this term sketch because this is like a drawing. We do first the sketch, the rough stuff first, and then we're going to refine this later. Now using Bloody Red from Vallejo, I'm going to smooth the transitions. Now with a very diluted red, I'm going to apply some glazes in the transitions between the red and the white to soften a bit more. For the skin I'm using Pink Flash and Basic Flash 50/50 as the base color. The face is the only part that shows skin on this miniature. Now I'm applying a layer of Basic Flash only. Now I'm going to sketch again the highlights using pale skin from scale 75. I'll start to paint some shadows using Indian Shadow from scale 75. Those are all paints from their kit Flash Paint set. Now using golden skin, I'm going to blend some transitions. At this point his lips was very reddish and I toned this down, but what I'm showing here is that I'm starting to paint his eyes. First I painted the white parts. I tried to film myself painting the pupils, but I failed and now I'm showing you the finished result. I basically used black paint and a very small brush. Now I painted inside the pupils with white. In this first try I used green for the eyes. I changed this later and painted with blue. This part will be a blue non-metallic metal, and what I'm doing here is sketching the highlights with a mix of white and electric blue from Vallejo. Now to paint the leather, I'm using the wood and leather paint set from Scale Color. The first layer I painted with Walnut. At this point you can see I already painted the white armor, and for this I used the same as I used before in the white parts, only using white and light grays. Here I'm mixing two colors, Walnut and Iroko, both from the paint set. Now I'm using only the color Iroko. For his gloves I used Somber Grey from Vallejo. And here I mixed Somber Grey with white to start some highlights. And this is my final result. Elias did a very good job in this sculpture. Paint this was an amazing experience. Most of the parts are detachable like the head, the torso and the waist, so it was pretty easy to reach all places. And this is my final result. Elias did a very good job in this sculpture. Paint this was an amazing experience. Most of the parts are detachable like the head, the torso and the waist, so it was pretty easy to reach all places. Another technique that I used for the non-metallic metal blue was to create the non-metallic metal using gray tones, reaching black for the shadows and white for the highlights, and then glazing with bluish tones over, like a lighter blue in the mid-tones and a darker blue over the black. You can see the different results by looking the sheen and the piece on the knee. One I started with a blue base and the other I started with a black and white base and glazed over. In the original artwork those parts are slightly different, and that's why I did this way, to make they look slightly different as well. The kits I used from Scale 75 were only possible because of the help of the members and the channel supporters. And if you liked this video, you can hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed if you want to see more content like this. So that's it for today. Abração e até mais!